The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm just getting used to, can you hear me first of all? Is that working out okay? Okay, thank you. And I'm looking at a screen, but there's also living people here in the Zendo, so it's going to take me a little practice to be with everybody. So yesterday, Dokai spoke about metta. I was taught the translation of metta as loving kindness, but it's boundless friendliness. The mother of metta is mindfulness, which we talked about yesterday too. So I encountered the Brahma Viharas, or the divine abodes, originally in the 1980s. I studied Vipassana for about 10 or 11 years. Actually, I still am in touch with those teachers and sometimes participate in some teaching with them. So in the late 80s and the 90s, I got the opportunity to practice the divine abodes, and they have been really a great touchstone in my life. One time in particular, I had a tumor that had to get removed, and I was really, really scared, like really freaked out. And I practiced every morning. In the morning, like the first thing I would say before I even woke up was, may I be safe and protected from all harm from within and without. May I live with ease of well-being in this world of change. Like over and over and over and over. I even made a vocal performance using the divine abodes at Clouds and Water. Must have been the late 1990s with my friend Lisa. We worked with the dhatu of sound, and we vocally improvised using that as our basis. Anyway, so traditionally the Brahma Viharas are taught as a compassion practice, as a concentration practice. Kind of in tandem with insight practice. But like all of these things, they really happen together. But sometimes just to get the sense of it, we have to practice them separately a little bit. So in the concentration practice, we cultivate each of the abodes in numerous categories, starting with ourselves, then a beloved, which could be a cat or a tree, and then a benefactor, and then a neutral person, and lastly a difficult person, and then later groups of people, like all men, all women, all these kind of people, all those kind of people. It's like heart neural pathways, just creating neural pathways for the heart to respond to our lives going there, to help us with our reactivity and connection. So we bring our mindful awareness to certain phrases, but it's not just words. The phrases are a sense in the heart. And one of my teachers used to teach it like we'd first meditate on the heart area, and then imagine that we dropped a drop of food coloring into the heart like pink, and then it got stronger. And then we would go from there. Thank you. Go from there using the phrases so that they became an actual kinesthetic experience that we could return to. Because if the words just stay in our head, nothing much happens, right? So the words are just like a little door. One thing that I read in some of my studies, which is so true, is that practicing the divine abodes, in order to practice them, we have to allow ourselves to move toward vulnerability, which, I'm speaking to a group of very advanced practitioners, so this is no big surprise to anyone in the room. But generally speaking, people don't like that. Maybe I don't like that, feeling that vulnerable tenderness. But that's where the healing is, we're taught, and I found it to be true. So I think it's really brave to be vulnerable. One time, I was teaching at Stillwater Prison. Ekyo, did you teach there too?
I worked there for a while.
Oh my God.
Where I briefly, just like once a month I'd go out there, but I didn't
okay.
teach there.
Well, I had this incredible gift of leading a retreat because Cal Appleby knew how to make it happen. So we had a retreat, a whole weekend retreat, or at least all day Saturday and part of Sunday. And so on Sunday, I taught them metta as a warrior practice. It was so moving, you guys. I'm going to cry just thinking about it. Because they felt so victimized by everything. And I said, if you practice metta, this is something you can do for your families. This is something you have control over. And even though you can't be there for your mom or your sister or whoever, you can do metta for them. So I could feel in the room there was a kind of like, all of a sudden, this wasn't some mushy meditation thing. This was like, wow. And it was wow. And then we even did metta for the guards. I know. I said, this is super warrior practice. So that's how powerful this stuff is. You know, when we say compassion and loving kindness, it just sounds like mush-mash, but it's not at all. It's really powerful. And its basis is in insight, seeing the non-duality of self and other, leaves on the trees, the air. What else can we do? When we see that, there's natural wishing to act on behalf of that connection, because it's not even a connection, because that's already separated. It's our own breath. So this is just reminding us of that, and everybody's here is already dedicated to that, but we might run into a lot of people that might not be. So it's good for us to remember that when we do. So the second Brahma Vihara is called Karuna, or compassion. So I think of compassion as what happens when metta meets suffering. So we make this basis of loving kindness that we can return to. May you be safe and protected, healthy and peaceful, calm and happy, live with ease in this world. We can return to that. My husband and I used to practice metta for each other when I would come here. The second sitting, in the beginning of the second sitting, we would send each other metta. And I got that idea from my own teachers, Steve Armstrong and Kamala Masters. And it was really powerful. It was amazing. It was actually really amazing. Like, I could feel it. And even when I went to California and practiced, I could feel it. Not that that makes any difference, but it seemed like if I got that far away, it would be harder. But it's very powerful. It's very powerful. Metta. So the first thing about compassion that is talked about is that sense of the heart kind of vibrating. You hear about something, I mean, we don't have to go far, right? Suffering's everywhere. We just read the paper, we hear something on the radio, and there's a little vibration, a quivering in the heart. Sometimes it's just, I don't know, when we're practicing with it, don't you? Sometimes like, oh, my heart's quivering, oh God, I can't take it right now. I can't take anymore. So that's okay. so we can have compassion for ourselves that we're so worn out. The other thing about compassion is that we intend to be present for the suffering. So that is kind of like mindfulness. Like, we have this outrageous opportunity to be here with each other. It's just incredible. And we're sitting and watching our breath, and some configuration comes up. And there's a tension, or there's like maybe the first reaction to the thought, because I think of thought as kind of physical. Like, it's a thought, but right away it's a chemistry. And so maybe unconsciously almost there's a like, no. But we don't say no. You know, it's just like this little cosmic, minute struggle right in that moment. So that is, we bring awareness to that. And that awareness, in a sense, has a warmth. It's compassion. So the warmth makes it possible to stay present. I'm just thinking this right now, actually, you know, I have the things written down. Like, when there's a coldness, that leads to aversion. At least for me. Maybe I'm weird, but the compassion is like accepting the aversion. Like, yuck. Like when we have a little kid and they're upset, we just say, oh, what happened? Right? What's the matter? Did the rocking chair hit your foot? That just happened last week. My grandson went to get a stuffed animal to show me, and a rocking chair hit his foot, and he started crying. And his mother, my daughter, went in his room. Jasper, what happened? Did the rocking chair hit your foot? You know, but then he can be with it. So that's really good teaching. So can we be that kind to ourselves when that same pattern comes up again in the body or the mind, and we're so sick of it, you know, like, oh, not that again. Can we bring that compassion to that moment? It helps us, I guess that's what I'm saying, you know, I'm reading it here, not react so strongly to our own suffering, you know, like that no, which is so mean, like excluding a part of ourselves. Okay. So we have two wings of the bird of Gasho and practice. So one is wisdom, like really clear, unconditionality, and then compassion. Together they make the Gasho. One, the other. Insight, compassion. They completely go together. And when it's happening on the cushion, it's happening so quickly. You know, it's dancing around like an electron in there, bringing that awareness down into us. So I am so grateful. Was it you who found this book, Carl? Oh my God. I've been studying this stuff for however long. I said, I am just completely blown away by this. Okay, can you see this book? Oops, there's the camera. This is, you know, I shouldn't say these things, but here I go. Like, this is the best book about the Brahma Viharas I have ever encountered. It's by Christina Feldman, who teaches in England mostly, but also at IMS. in Massachusetts, Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts. So she says, talking about equanimity, so the whole theme of this retreat is equanimity, so I wanted to connect compassion and equanimity. And she says, the invitation of equanimity is to learn to abide in calm in the midst of agitation, to abide in peace in the midst of conflict, and to abide in balance in the midst of chaos. So I'll just say that is a great aspiration. I have had some really, really difficult circumstances in my life in the last 12 years, and I aspire to equanimity. That's good. That's good because I'm inclining towards equanimity. She also says it's a pathway, a way of being present, and a seed we cultivate, and an ongoing journey of investigation. And that maybe is the most important thing to me, because, you know, we can come back around, like, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? And then bring that compassion to the practice of equanimity. And also, I'll just say, I sometimes say this, I grew up in like an opera environment. So there wasn't a lot of upekkha, there wasn't a lot of equanimity practiced in the house. There was a lot of emotion. So I can really feel things. But compassion isn't just really feeling things. It's bringing this measure of insight to the things so that they can be held and not just reacted to. So we want to connect equanimity to the practice of compassion. And I'm going to talk about this again in a couple days, but this is so beautiful that equanimity, upekkha, is the ground for wisdom and freedom and the protector of compassion and love. The protector. It's like there's the big eagle protector with the wings. I found somewhere in my papers that Joan Halifax got into the Brahma Viharas. And so she talks a lot about the balance between equanimity and compassion. Compassion is the tenderness of the heart in response to suffering. Equanimity is a spacious stillness that accepts things as they are. So we have the strength of equanimity and the tenderness of compassion, the courage of presence, and the openness of surrender. So this is about not being overwhelmed by the suffering. That's what I'm trying to get to. Especially this year, I mean, especially any time really, but especially this year in particular, getting overwhelmed by suffering could be super easy to have happen. You know, there's all the things that Dokai said yesterday. COVID, racial awakening, I want to say, but in the process, a lot of pain and suffering. There's so many, I keep forgetting them. What am I forgetting?
Politics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, politics. In my neighborhood, when George Floyd was murdered, my neighborhood got burned up and ripped up, and my bank got burned up, and my post office got burned up, and all my neighbors on my street were freaked out and sending each other emails. I put my garbage cans in the garage. I found out I could bolt my back gate shut, which I did because I'm all by myself and the cats are not very brave. Yeah, that was very unsettling, and just think like stuff like this is happening all over the world in a gazillion places. So the opportunity to get overwhelmed was really strong. So to have something to take refuge in, a practice, for instance, is very important. So because Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, we can take refuge in this practice of metta and compassion for the distress, for the overwhelm, for the shutdown, for the kind of incredible beauty that also arose. Like, my neighbors were out there sweeping glass and making murals on the gorgeous murals on the near in the shopping area where all the glass was broken, and they put up wood and then people made beautiful murals. So there was everything going on. So the phrases that we use, well, my most favorite phrase is so simple. It's, I care about this pain. So simple. There's lots of them, but that one is so direct. I care about your pain. I care about the pain. I care about this pain that I'm having, that I'm scared or whatever. I care. Just care. The other day, I had a hard experience, and I came to work and I realized that that hard experience was not really having an effect on my system. And a friend called me on my cell phone at work, and I said I had this hard experience. And she said, with really compassion, she happens to be a practitioner, but she said, I'm so sorry. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm sorry, that's too bad. You know, it was like, I'm so sorry. And I could feel it go right into my heart. And it was like medicine. It was like balm, you know. So it really helps us. Shantideva. Remember Shantideva? Okay, so one of my favoriteest things that he says is, may I be the medicine and physician for the sick. May I be an inexhaustible treasure for the destitute. May I become food and drink in time of famine. May I be a protector for those who have no protection, a guide for travelers and a boat, a bridge and a ship for those who wish to cross over. May I be a lamp for those who seek light. That's a bodhisattva vow. And I think everyone in this today that we're together, that bodhisattva vow is very resonating with everybody here. It's not news. So one of the other phrases for compassion practice is, may I find peace and healing in the midst of this. May I rest in care and compassion. So it's like we're teaching ourselves what that is. Did you ever read this book called God's Hotel? Did you? It's great. You would love it. So it's this doctor whose name I don't remember, but she writes about working in San Francisco at this hospital that's for the destitute, for the they have nowhere else to put anybody. And it's in this old building up outside the city somewhere, and they actually grow vegetables, and I think they had goats at one time. Can you imagine this right now? This is not corporate health care, which I work in, so I have a lot to say about that. But the people would come and they would stay for 8 months. This never happens, right? And they would get better because this doctor would figure out to take away their meds. And she was working with the point of view of the abbess in Germany, the famous mystic, help me, what's her name? Everybody knows.
Hildegard?
Hildegard, thank you
Von
so
Bingen.
much. Yeah, Hildegard von Bingen. And she believed in Dr. Quiet, Dr. Diet, and Dr. something else, happiness or something like that. And so this doctor started kind of functioning like that. And what happened was, these people who were homeless and miserable and just constantly in one drum after the other, and so sick, not all of them, but some of them would get better because they got compassion. They were cared about. They were fed. They had clean linen. They had some regularity in their lives. There was like a schedule, like us. And they would get better. And sometimes they would actually heal their lives. And be able to go back out in the world and have an apartment and a job and things like that. Wow. So they were learning compassion for themselves. They were doing this practice because they were treated with compassion. They were learning about it. And then they were also able to stand up and say no to conditions in their lives that were hurting them. It was incredible. You have to read it. All the stories she tells. So from the equanimity point of view, we say, I care for you, but I can't remove your suffering. I suppose I'm supposed to be, oh my God. Okay, 5 minutes. Isn't that interesting? So, I have a brother who's mentally ill, and sometimes it's not a mess, but it's a mess sometimes. And it's awful. He's my baby brother. I'm the eldest. And he's in California, and he's married to someone who's kind of cuckoo. And, they make these choices that are just not good. And there's 4 of us, so there's 2 sisters and a brother who are worried about the brother. And I finally started to realize, I love you to the pieces of the schmieces, but I can't make your choices for you. I can't remove your suffering. I can't fix everything up so that you'll be okay, which of course as the eldest, I think that's my job. But I can't. Your release from suffering depends on your choices. I can only say, honey, I can't help you with that. Or, I love you, but, this isn't really a good idea, but you have to make the decision. This is what I can do. Broken record. This is what I can do. This is what I can do. I can't do that. It's hard, but that's part of compassion. That's part of compassion. If I take on the suffering, I'm a wreck. That's not what this practice is about. One time when I was a clinical pastoral education student, a Vietnamese couple told me their story about escaping from Saigon on the last plane or helicopter or boat or something. And he had been a lawyer there. And I just listened and I was a wreck. Because, I left them and I couldn't stop crying. And my teacher said, Myo-O, 1 foot in and 1 foot out. That was the best teaching I ever got up to that point. Does that make sense? 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So it means let your heart quiver, let yourself respond, let yourself care. But you got to keep a foot in equanimity. I mean, she didn't use that language. You can't just have the tidal wave come and roll you down the mountain. So it's about we're willing to name the pain, and we're willing to establish a balanced relationship with the pain. So Karuna is concerned with embodiment, courageous engagement with all the manifestations of pain that we can meet. And it's a commitment to healing suffering when it can be healed, uprooting suffering when it can be uprooted. I love that because there's a lot of teachers here. So we can't uproot suffering for someone else. Even when we can see, maybe, or we think we can, see the habit. And we can't just go in there and pull it out. It doesn't work. It's so hard. And this is my favorite thing that I read. Liberating a person from fixed views about themselves or others is fantastic. So I'm a singing teacher, and once in a while, someone will come and something will happen, and the sound will come out, and they're like, what was that? And I'll say, well, it was you, it wasn't me. And that was like a moment of liberation. It's so much joy, right? Yeah. Well, here's a cool thing. The grandmother of Karuna is mindfulness, and the mother of Karuna is metta. So there's a background to how we can practice with this. And so we have to stop, but I'm going to pass around this beautiful, I got to show you guys. Wait, take my little notes off of there. So, okay, you guys, can you see this beautiful painting? Yeah? So this beautiful painting, which I'm going to end with, oh, there's more.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Is the Zen. So I've been talking about Vipassana style, but there's a very famous Zen story, which everybody knows already. Yunyan asked Dao Wu, how does the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin use those many hands and eyes? Dao Wu said, it is like someone in the middle of the night reaching behind her head for a pillow. I love this koan. Everybody loves this koan. Yunyan said, I understand. I get it. Dao Wu says, how do you understand? Yunyan said, all over the body are hands and eyes. Dao Wu said, that's very good, but it's only 80%. Yunyan said, well, how would you say it then, Dao Wu? Dao Wu said, throughout the body are hands and eyes. So there was just a little titch of separation in his answer. And so Dawu said, that's what they're always doing. Like, yeah, but you forgot this part. So reaching back behind us for the pillow is so natural. It's just natural. It's just a flow to that response of compassion. Okay, I'm sorry I talked too much, but I want to know what you guys have to say. Please feel free to say whatever you want. Any thoughts or pointing outs or question? Hi, Alan. Hi.
Thank you very much. Some things like that. I'm practicing. A number of people I like who are very, very ill.
Yeah.
So what you're saying speaks to me. How you're staying close. Not away from the seeing that. How can you be helpful in some way? But I felt that helpful just by being with the person and sharing about that person.
So if you couldn't hear, Alan said, if I can get this right, Alan, that he's thinking that he can help the person just by being with the person. Is that right, Alan?
Yes, by sharing my life with them, by sharing myself.
Sharing his life and himself with them. Thank you, Alan. Yes.
I would like to get some help with compassion for the difficult people.
Yeah, that's so hard. Okay.
And oftentimes,
Yeah.
I qualify.
Yeah, I know. We all probably have a lot of wisdom about that. I'm literally working with a very difficult person. He's my boss at work, and he's an extremely difficult person without a lot of personal insight, very ambitious, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm amazed to notice that I can feel some compassion for him. At the same time, I'm very clear about why his leadership is absolutely terrible. I'm very clear about that. But if I actually see him in the hall, instead of feeling my reactive Hungarian self, which, judgment and frustration, exasperation, fear, I feel like, wow, you're so confused. It's very interesting. Maybe someone else has more wisdom, but that's what I notice. And then also, I'll tell you that when Trump got elected, I went to Clouds and Water. They had us sit that day, and I practiced metta for Trump. But here's what I did. I put him on the other side of Lake Superior because I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't get that close. I was so freaked out. So I imagined him on the other side of Lake Superior, and that felt safe enough, and then I could send him metta. And then when I did, what I saw was, oh my God, he's a complete mess. You know, he's, I mean, this is a terrible situation that a complete mess is in this position of power, but he's a mess. I remember one time, Tomoe-san said to me, I was talking about someone who I was confused about, and she said, oh, no, right, she doesn't have any psychology training. This is what I love. She said, oh, he's very confused, and so he's throwing up on everyone. That's what she said. I thought that was so brilliant. Just cut through the bullshit. No psychological gobbledygook. Just very confused, throwing up on everyone. Does that help at all? Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Well, go ahead.
I think the process of getting from here to there, so the aversion arises. And while I have some experience, I know oftentimes, A, I just can't get there. B, I kind of have to make up this little story sometimes. And like one thing that I try to remember is, this is a person just like me.
Yeah.
That doesn't have a lot of zing sometimes, you know, even though actually that's, that can be very effective just because it's nothing special.
Right. Right.
So just, you know, looking for anything from your experience that you might be able to share on that.
Well, one thing is if I'm having that icky reactivity in my heart and mind and aversion, I'm suffering. So I could just be nice to myself. Like, oh, did the rocking chair hurt your foot, honey? Oh, yeah, that really hurts. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got you. You know, I just like, oh my gosh, I'm really suffering. I'm trying to be good, but I'm really suffering. Sometimes I just can't be very good. You know, I have to have like love for the part of me that wants to be so damn good. And I'm failing according to my own plan. Is that? So how can I be gentle? Like, oh, this is really hard. This is, you know, really touching some place in me. I need to take care of that. And maybe feel really vulnerable, like we talked about at the beginning, like, oh, okay, more healing to do. So when my husband was sick for 11 years and he was getting worse and worse, his brain was shrinking. I didn't know that till later. And oh my God, I was just a complete failure. I felt like a failure when I would get to those places where like, I cannot do this. And I was very happy to see that Joan Halifax has these beautiful, maybe this will help you right now, because I was like, oh my God, she's talking to me. She had these beautiful phrases. May I forgive myself for mistakes made and things left undone. May I forgive myself for not meeting my loved one's needs. May I accept my human limitations with compassion. May I accept my anger, fear, and sadness, knowing that they don't limit my vast heart. Oh my God, I could cry just reading those. Like, I needed someone like making cocoa out of this and giving me a cup every single day. I didn't even know I was allowed. I was just failing to meet my own expectations. Does that help? Like, here's permission. Permission to be vulnerable and human and drop that compassion deep, deep into the source of confusion. You know, that we're alone, that there's a self, there's a other, that we have to do something. All those sources of confusion. I mean, Buddha was the great physician. I mean, he was a great adept in all that business, but his main deal was, I'm giving you a prescription for healing. Right? Is there anything else that wants to be said right now?
May our intention equally penetrate
For being and place, for true merit of Buddha's way. Beings that are numberless, I vow to free them.
the
Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it.